Welcome back. The death toll from the coronavirus has risen to 427 with over 20,000 people infected. The virus has now spread to 27 countries. This report will now tell you more.
China's National Health Commission reported 64 new fatalities, the biggest single-day increase since the virus was first detected. Beijing has asked the US to provide assistance to tackle the disease as soon as possible, instead of criticizing its effort to combat the outbreak. Meanwhile, Hong Kong has reported its first death from the incurable disease, becoming the second casualty outside China. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam warned of serious consequences of the hospital workers' strike after the death.
The consequences yesterday were quite serious. Important services, critical operations have been affected, whether it is in the neonatal ICUs, in the isolation wards, or patients awaiting certain cancer treatments. All these have been affected.
Health officials said the patient suffered from sudden heart failure.
In Taiwan, 13 people have died in the last week from the H1N1 strain of swine flu. The Taiwanese government says 56 people lost their lives to the virus in the last 3 months. The government says in this season there have been 750 swine flu cases with severe complications. Of the severe cases, 41% of patients are over 65 years of age. Government data suggests 43 patients who died from the virus in the last 3 months were not vaccinated. Moving on to Pakistan, whose Prime Minister Imran Khan says he regrets missing the Kuala Lumpur summit last year but will definitely attend the next one. The Premier discussed ways to strengthen bilateral ties and the worsening crisis in the Indian-occupied Kashmir with his Malaysian counterpart. More in this report.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan flew to Kuala Lumpur on Monday for a 2-day official visit. Following his meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, Khan thanked him for his unwavering support for the Kashmir cause.
The way Prime Minister spoke about what the people of Kashmir are going through right now. For 6 months, the people of Kashmir are in open prison. Unfortunately, a very radical extremist government in India, and I say sadly, which has taken over India, has put the people of Kashmir in open prison for 6 months.
The two leaders signed an extradition treaty to enhance security cooperation between the countries. They also committed to bolstering the already strong ties between the two nations by enhancing business and trade. Mahathir termed the meeting the dawn of a new era.
Prime Minister Imran Khan and I just witnessed the signing of a treaty on extradition, which will reinforce the positive momentum in the bilateral relationship by enhancing security and transnational crime cooperation between both countries.
Prime Minister Khan said some of Pakistan's friends thought the summit will divide the Muslim Ummah, which was proven wrong. He also pledged to compensate for any threat to Malaysia's palm oil exports if India decides to punish Kuala Lumpur for its stance on the Indian-occupied Kashmir.
Preparations in Pakistan are in full swing to observe Kashmir Solidarity Day tomorrow to highlight the plight of people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Pakistan annually observes the day to remind the world community of its obligations towards the resolution of the outstanding dispute. Prime Minister Imran Khan will address a special session of Azad and Jammu Kashmir Legislative Assembly in Muzaffarabad. Meanwhile, arrangements have been made to form human chains at all 6 entry points connecting Azad Kashmir to Pakistan. Pro-freedom leaders of occupied Kashmir have thanked Pakistan for its solidarity and support. The valley has been reeling under India's lockdown and communications blackout for the past 184 days. In the US, Seattle City Council, among the most powerful city councils in the country, has passed a motion against India's controversial Citizenship Act. The resolution was passed to express solidarity with the city's South Asian community, regardless of religion and caste. The council said it finds the legislation to be discriminatory to Muslims, oppressed castes, women, and indigenous people. The council asked New Delhi to repeal the act and take steps to help refugees under UN resolutions. It said, Seattle City's decision to condemn the law is a message to all who wish to undermine pluralism and religious freedom. Moving to the Middle East, the UN says it is alarmed by recent clashes between Turkish and Syrian government forces in northwestern Syria. The international body has called for calm and pressed each side to return to negotiations. Speaking to media in New York, UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said, the growing conflict threatens regional peace. Dujarric said, the UN is in contact with officials in Syria, Turkey and Russia and urged them to de-escalate. He said, the UN is also concerned by reports of civilian casualties and large-scale displacements. Yesterday, Turkey claimed it killed 76 Syrian soldiers in retaliation of 8 Turkish soldiers died in shelling. Syrian state media says the artillery fire hit a natural gas plant in the south-central area of Homs as well as the Ebla gas plant. Turkey says developments in Syria's northwestern region of Idlib have become unmanageable. Speaking in Kiev, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan urged Russia to assume its obligations in Idlib. He said close to 1 million people in Idlib are marching towards Turkish borders as a result of the Syrian government's offensive. Erdogan said Ankara's military hit dozens of Syrian regime targets after 6 Turkish soldiers were killed by the regime's shelling. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky extended condolences to Ankara over the deaths of the Turkish soldiers. Turkey has again refused to recognize Russia's annexation of Crimea, branding it illegal. During a state visit to Kiev, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey supports Ukrainian sovereignty. Erdogan said Turkey is closely monitoring the condition of Crimea's Tatar Turks and will continue to work with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was grateful for Ankara's military and financial support. Zelensky also asked for Turkish support to secure the release of Ukrainians in Russian prisons, including the Crimean Tatars. Iran has cut off cooperation with Ukraine in its investigation into the downing of a passenger jet by Iranian missiles last month. The head of Iranian investigation team, Hassan Razafir, said Tehran will no longer provide any documents to Ukrainians. This comes after leaked remarks suggested Iran knew it had struck the plane immediately after the incident. Ukrainian TV aired audio recordings of an exchange between air traffic control and a pilot who was landing as the jet crashed. Iran says it is ready to cooperate with the EU to resolve issues related to the 2015 nuclear deal. Meeting the EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell, President Hassan Rouhani said Iran will return to its commitments when other signatories uphold their end. Borrell's 2-day visit to Tehran is aimed at lowering tensions over Iran's nuclear program. He held a meeting with Foreign Minister Javad Zarif ahead of talks with Rouhani and Parliament Speaker Ali Larijani. Borrell told reporters the activation of the dispute mechanism does not mean going to the Security Council to cancel the nuclear deal. In Iraq, protest camps have split over whether to back Premier-designate Mohammad Alawi or continue opposing the government. One protester was killed after followers of cleric Muqtada Sadr attacked an anti-regime rally. Baghdad have been rocked by months of protests demanding an overhaul of the government. Most protesters have rejected Alawi as too close to the ruling elite, but Sadr, who backed the rallies, has welcomed Alawi's appointment. In a tweet, he urged his followers, the Blue Caps, to coordinate with authorities to reopen schools and roads. The World Health Organization says the first flight carrying critically ill Yemeni patients has left the rebel held capital, Sana'a. The UN body said the people will receive life-saving care not available in Yemen. It is the first such aid flight in over 3 years. The UN says 8 patients and their relatives took off for Amman in a UN-marked plane. The majority were women and children suffering with aggressive cancers and brain tumors. The WHO confirmed the medical evacuation is expected to continue with another 3 flights this week. In presidential elections in the US, the Democratic National Committee has delayed the result of the Iowa presidential primary caucus. The DNC says the result of the first caucus in the primary race are subject to quality checks after reports of inconsistencies in 3 sets. A change in the rules since the 2016 race now requires a caucus to report 3 sets of numerical data instead of 2 for each count. The Iowa vote will offer a crucial early look at the viability of the 11 Democrats still in the race. Frontrunners Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and the former Vice President Joe Biden face a key test in the sparsely populated state. Only 41 delegates are up for grabs for candidates looking to pick up momentum early in the race. Representatives from Libya's 2 warring parties have started United Nations-led talks in Geneva. The Libya Joint Military Commission is tasked with supervising a truce that has all but collapsed. The UN statement said the commission includes 5 officers from the Government of National Accord and 5 from Eastern Military Commander Khalifa Haftar. The 10-member body was created at the conclusion of a 12-nation summit held in Berlin last month. The meeting is being moderated by Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and Head of Body's Support Mission in Libya, Ghassan Salameh. Malawi's Constitutional Court has annulled last year's disputed presidential election results. The top court cited widespread irregularities and ordered a new vote. The vote in May returned the sitting president Peter Mutharika to power, but opposition candidates went to court to argue that the election was not fair. The 5-judge panel heard arguments that the vote was rigged by the president and electoral commission. Both have denied the accusation. In Kenya, 13 children have been killed in a stampede in the western town of Kakamega. Police said over 40 children were injured in the incident. The stampede occurred as the children rushed down a staircase while leaving school. Police said the injured have been shifted to hospital and are being taken care of. Kenyan authorities have launched an investigation into the incident. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back. UK's criminal law has come under fire as Sudesh Aman, the attacker responsible for the Streatham stabbing attack, had pled guilty to terror-related charges in 2018. So why was he back on the streets while he was still radicalized? London Mayor Sadiq Khan says the UK's legal system does not have the tools needed to keep dangerous terrorism convicts in prison. This report will now tell you more.
Aman was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months in jail after confessing to possessing terrorism-related documents. This included 3 manuals on knife fighting. He was released after serving only half of his sentence just 2 days before the Streatham attack. London's Mayor Sadiq Khan says this means the attack was completely preventable.
Well, I've been concerned for some time and I've made my views clear in relation to changes in law made by the government, which mean that judges haven't got the tools they used to have to keep people in prison longer who are still a danger to the public.
This is an opinion that's being echoed by other citizens.
I think the wider issue and the more important issue to talk about is the release of any prisoner that's at risk and why they're being released when they're pretty much a known danger. I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed in Parliament.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has already vowed to set tougher rules on releasing people convicted of terrorist offences. It remains to be seen what wider impact this will have on the British legal system.
In the US, 1 person has been killed in a shooting in California. Police said 5 others were wounded as a gunman in the bus opened fire. The bus carrying 40 passengers was headed from Los Angeles to San Francisco. The shooter voluntarily got off the vehicle as the driver pulled over to the shoulder. The attacker was left on the highway where he was arrested without incident. The police said the suspect left his gun behind. In Italy, the management of Pejo's ski resort has started a war against pollution. The first move is to ban plastic cups, spoons and straws. Nestled in the Alps, the resort has become the first ski resort to ban single-use items. More in this report.
Abandon all plastic and reduce plastic. These are the signs displayed at the Peyo Resort. The decision was made after scientists revealed the Forni Glacier could contain between 131 and 162 million plastic particles. Tourism is a major contributor to the Italian economy. Last winter, 137,000 skiers visited this resort.
As for the cable car tickets, we replaced one-day ski passes, which were previously covered with plastics, with paper tickets.
The local tourism board is also optimistic about the decision. Banned plastic items have been replaced with alternatives.
Basically, we've changed everything, starting from the small items. Plastic bottles have been replaced by glass bottles, but also straws, containers, glasses, single-use plastic. All these things have been removed and replaced with alternatives using different materials such as cellulose, paste, cardboard, and other materials compatible with nature.
Skiers are also backing this eco-friendly choice.
I'm sure we are not able to get rid of plastic 100% because we need it for life economy. But if we reduce it somehow, it would be great for us, for the earth.
This is not the first environmentalist choice the valley has made. They already use renewable energy produced by 3 small hydroelectric plants.
Stock markets across Asia are trading higher after heavy losses amid the new coronavirus scare. Investors are recovering from the panic as major stocks become undervalued, following consistent selling pressure. Seoul's Kospi has gained nearly 1%. Shanghai Composite is trading over 1% higher, recovering from yesterday's crash. Hong Kong's Hang Seng has gained over 1%. Shares of Chinese tech giants Tencent shot up 2%, while Alibaba's bourses shot up nearly 4%. Nikkei 225 has also gained over 0.5%. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude price surged nearly 1%, recovering yesterday's losses as China's demand for oil slumps. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.